Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net. As of recently, there has been a lot of talk about things like lost media and media in general that has been created, whether it was a movie or a television series or a piece of internet content or a video game that has been considered lost in that you can't get it anymore, it's not being sold anymore, and it can't even be obtained anymore online. There's no archive of it, basically. What do you do in those cases? Well, usually you get the word out. You try to seek out whoever the creator is, and you try to try to convince them to either find the material or bring the material, or re-release the material. And it usually can be that easy. Usually a creator will be willing to re-release their content, if possible. But what happens if you're like me, where you don't even have a name? You don't know where to start. You just have a distribution method and a potential timeline. But you've got one hell of something that you can remember, right? At least a really good memory. Well, I have this story that I have been sitting on for the past 20 years. I wrote about it about 10 years ago on my website. I got no responses from it. And it's been 10 years since I posted that article. And so I figured, what if I did a new video about it and broadcasted it to all of you guys? Maybe because I know that the YouTube in general has always been very successful at offering ways of lost media finding. There are YouTube channels like Blame It on George and things like that. All Things Lost, which are great channels, fantastic channels that have covered this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't know where to go to. So my hope is that somebody watches this video and can at the very least point me in the right direction or get the ball rolling. Because this is something, if real, would be something that should be worthy of archival. 25 years ago, the Disney Channel was a premium television network, very similar to how HBO or Showtime is run these days. Now, they did have Disney content, like you could watch Disney movies when they were being broadcast, like Tinker Bell or Tron or whatever. They always had a good smattering of all of their different back catalog. But they also had original shows, original content, and in some cases, original movies. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, first off, what we're going to be talking about was a movie that was made and was broadcast on the Disney Channel. I am going to describe that movie in as much detail as I possibly can. In fact, I spent the last 48 hours actually going over all of my memories about it to try to address for you guys so that you guys have the best picture of what it is, the movie that I'm looking for. So this is what the movie was about. It involved a bunch of teenagers, which were likely played by 20-year-olds. And they had an arcade in their basement. Now, that can be a lot of movies, but I'll try my best to go over the plot as best as I can. I didn't see the first half of this movie, so I don't know the name. I don't know the characters' names. I don't remember how the story started. But I did watch from what I think might be either the middle or the climax all the way to the ending. So I know how it ends. And I could even describe from memory what their basement arcade looked like. I distinctly remember it being paneled, like wood paneled. Not like this, more like these are more like siding. Straight slats, but possibly diagonal, but wood grain. Kind of similar to how you would have, from the 70s or whatever, what you would normally find for what could be described as a modern day man cave. They had this. That's really what their arcade looked like. It looked like a basement arcade or perhaps a garage arcade that was in somebody's house. They had, for arcade machines, two things that I distinctly remember. They had a full-size Sega hang-on machine. The full-size motorcycle that you get on and that you tilt left and right. They also had a television screen, a CRT television screen, possibly hooked up to a Laserdisc machine. But I distinctly remember they had a CRT television hanging up on one of the walls. And that television was important to the plot line of the movie, actually. So here was the plot line of the movie, as far as I can remember. These boys, and it was all boys, were playing games that could interact with each other. Like each individual game that they played would be able to interface with the other game. Basically, almost like an entire network of arcades, which as far as I remember was not possible back then. And as far as I know, even with these machines nowadays, it's not possible. Newer stuff can network, but this was like a big deal even at the time that they were able to do this. And the plot line is that the game that they were really playing was an all-encompassing game where they controlled a character, an in-game character, on the hanging CRT TV. And what would happen is that they played kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure interactive Laserdisc movie. Not like Dragon's Lair, because Dragon's Lair was like real time. It had to be interacted with. The game that they were playing would have a character in a scenario. And he was played by a live-action actor. He wasn't in 3D, probably for budget reasons. And as the scene played out, or as the scene got to a point, it would get to a chapter point or a decision point. And the players would then, amongst themselves, choose, I think, like A, B, C, or D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 possible scenarios. And the guys would then choose amongst themselves and come up with, well, I pick A, or oh, I pick D, B, or oh, I pick D. And they'd make their decision, and then the scene would continue to play out, which would then lead into a video game. Like, here's what I distinctly remember. They make a decision, and the character has to take a motorcycle ride to the next destination. In order for him to do that, one of the characters that's playing the game then has to get on the hang-on machine and literally play it, and it cuts back and forth between him playing the game and the avatar on the Laserdisc player, also doing it, basically getting to his destination. Each actor had his own, each player had his own expertise. Like the guy, when the Hang On came up, the guy was like, this one's mine. So everybody had their own game that they were experienced with. Now, again, I don't remember much about the plot line of the game that they played, except that I think the avatar that they were playing as, or they were playing for, was infiltrating a fancy dinner party or something. I don't remember. But here was the thing that I distinctly remember. The game was ruined. Over the course of the game that they're playing, they're making decisions. And obviously, from playing any choose your own adventure, that you can make a mistake and then you get into a scenario where it's unwinnable. That's basically how their game finishes up. What ends up happening is that a character that they didn't do a very good job with, a female character in the game, that they didn't get to do a very good job with avoiding, shows up at the ending. And I distinctly remember, the player saying, oh, so-and-so is here. What is she doing here? The game is ruined. And basically, that's how it plays out. It plays out that the character that they didn't think about shows up at the last second, intervenes with whatever the player character, the avatar, is trying to do, and the game is ruined. There's no more, it's game over, basically. So at that point, the game is over. Everybody is like, that's it. We're done here. Everybody starts packing up to get ready to go home. So at that point, one of the boys runs into an elderly businessman, probably a father or stepfather. He was dressed like a 80s yuppie or something like that, but basically probably like one of, he very much looked like, to me, like one of the, what you would consider like one of those 80s bankers or stockbrokers or something. The kind of guy that would drive a BMW in the 80s. Certainly a grown man. And he says to this character, I'm assuming his son, hey, I know we haven't always gotten along, and I know that I'm new in your life, or whatever it is. But I know you're into your games, but let me make you an offer. I can offer you a job working for my company. And it's a good paying job. You would be able to make money, and with it you could upgrade your equipment. And like the inference is, of course, is that they could bring in new arcade machines or new equipment for the arcade, or upgrade the existing machines. Possibly bring in the possibility of a sequel, or I don't know. I honestly don't know. And this is why I think that what I was watching was not a game show. As I'm telling the story right now, I'm sounding more and more like I'm describing a game show, but this has a cast of characters. This was a plot. This had a plot. It might have been a TV show. I admit that. But more likely, I feel that it was a made-for-TV movie. Now, at that point, when he makes the offer, the boy, I believe, accepts the offer, if my memory is certain. And then the credits start to roll. And the credits were like, basically like, it wasn't like going black. The credits I distinctly remember were not black credits on, white lettering on black background or something like that. It was like some artsy, background where, the still image of the finale is then like whited out, and then you got like red lettering for the credits or something, kind of like, which was kind of fancy at the time. And I think it was used for like made for TV movies and stuff. This could have been an after-school special that was made in the 80s. As it might have been something that was made by the Disney Channel. The truth is, I don't know. This existed before, obviously, there was a time before they actually would show you on the screen what you were watching as you were watching it. So if you started watching something in the middle of a broadcast, you would not know what it was called unless you had a TV guide. And once it was over, you wouldn't be able to go back and look it up because it had already broadcast. Back then, they actually had a scheduling system, like it was an automated scheduling system that would play for some, there was like a dedicated schedules channel. This existed even back then. And it would show you what would be going on for like the next 3 to 6 hours or something on every channel. But that took forever to watch. And again, once it was over, the data was wiped. You were just watching what was coming up. Anything that had previously aired, they didn't care about anymore. So imagine my frustration with, oh man, I really wish I could have watched the beginning. I really wish I knew the name of this. Now, how can I help people to help me, basically? I've just given you the plot line of the movie as far as I know. I've also given you a channel that it was on. I know this was on the Disney Channel. I can also give you, the best of my knowledge, a potential date. At least a cutoff date. Or at least a start date going backwards. I know for a fact that I did not get the Disney Channel after, I think it was October 1992. So basically, anything from November 1992 backwards, it would have to be shown during that time. I checked the scheduling for the Disney Channel in, I believe it was November and December 1992, and I can confirm I did not have the Disney Channel during those times. I looked at what was being broadcast, and I can confirm I did not watch the Disney Channel during those times. I didn't have it anymore. So I can at least give you a start date going backwards. This would have broadcast no later than 1992 October. I am certain of that. What else can I provide you? I also did some backtrack on Wikipedia many years ago, back when I wrote the original article for my website. And in that article, I did do a search on Wikipedia for all of the Disney Channel made-for-TV movies. Nothing on that list, at least nothing that had an open Wikipedia article, matched up. But then again, I know for a fact that even as late as the 2000s, the Disney Channel was broadcasting other people's movies, even movies that were meant for television. How do I know this? Because there was a lot of stuff that was being broadcast on the Disney Channel at that time that was not referenced as original content. Including, and I know there's a lot of gaps in that content, because I distinctly remember a made-for-TV movie called The Secret of Lost Creek that broadcast at around that time that has no mention or Wikipedia article. Also, most of the Disney Channel stuff from that time is, of course, lost media. We don't even have the 90s version of Mickey Mouse Club, for example. There was also original series that were being broadcast at that time, like Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which, as far as I know, have not been referenced or remembered ever since either. To say nothing of series like DTV and stuff. The Disney Channel was a bit of a Wild West back then. They had original content, but it wasn't enough to fill up a station at the whole time. So what I think they were doing was they were basically buying the rights to Canadian made-for-TV movies and stuff. And I know this because a lot of the classic shows that I remembered, like Under the Umbrella Tree, for example, are not referenced as original Disney Channel shows. They are referenced as Canadian shows that were purchased or licensed. So there was no Cartoon Network back then. It didn't exist. So it could not have been on Cartoon Network. I don't believe it was on any other channel at the time. Because like I said, I only saw it air once. So how can I get you guys to help me a little bit better? One, again, you guys got a little bit of a plot line. But here's one thing I haven't been able to do because cost. I know for a fact, because somebody pointed it out to me a few years ago, that the Disney Channel actually had what was called Disney Channel Magazine. It had a listing that came out every month of all of the shows and movies, including licensed and as well as original stuff, or leased, I should say, that was going to be shown that month, or at least over the span of 2 months, as well as with a full schedule. Now, I checked what was posted on the Internet Archives, and as far as I can tell, and that's what made me help me confirm that it definitely wasn't something that was as late as November, December 1992. I knew it would have had to have been before then. However, the months that are currently up right now, I checked them on the Internet Archive at least a few months ago. I checked them, and I didn't find anything on there yet. But again, that really hasn't stopped my search because, like I said, I remember distinctly with titles of like original movies and TV shows that currently don't have Wikipedia entries. So I don't know. If this gets to somebody's attention, I've checked everywhere. I actually used to be a member of a Disney fan group, several Disney fan groups actually. And I asked them, and nobody remembers this. I don't even think people that currently work for the Disney Channel at this time have any recollection of this movie. I may have made this movie up. I seriously don't think I did, because normally I'm not really good at remembering dreams. And I distinctly remember as the show ended, my father watching it with me, the ending with me. Again, I dream. It doesn't seem like it would have been a dream is what I'm trying to say. And it's, again, the fact that I haven't found anything has not really deterred me that much. I've also checked some Disney Channel commercial compilations from that time. And again, I haven't seen anything, but then again, there's so much of it. And again, even I know that the YouTube archive is incomplete. I remember many Disney Channel bumpers that are not on YouTube, but I tried looking for them, and I know that it's not up yet, you know, that sort of thing. So I know the archive is incomplete, but if anybody remembers this, if anybody worked on it and thinks about it, a couple of years ago, this is where I'm hopeful. A couple of years ago, I remembered a HBO made-for-TV movie. It was about it was basically a futuristic version of The Bodyguard. I won't go too much into it, it's not important. And for years, I was trying to figure out what that movie was. I thought I was crazy for remembering it. But it turned out, no, I wasn't crazy. It was just a movie that's hard to find now. Somebody online actually was good enough to actually find it for me. So, if this can get posted anywhere that might help me, I have no idea where to look. Just where to start the search. As to how to search, I have no idea. Happy New Year, everybody. This is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Take care. Over and out.